talk a little bit about the foliar diseases that are common in Nebraska and what we see. Now, first of all, this year we have seen, early on, we saw quite a bit of bacterial blight. That's the one that comes in and affects plants whenever we see any kind of damage. We get hail, we get high-speed winds, and any wounding. That's where we can see bacterial blight. Symptoms typically occur where that damage occurred. Then you have some new growth that may be healthy above that. The other bacterial disease we see in the state is bacterial pustule. You might see that right now. A lot of times in the upper portion of the canopies where I'll see that. Just a lot of times even along the veins that form these dark little spots, little brown areas. That's the one that we talked about several years back when we were discussing soybean rust and how to identify it as potentially something you'd misidentify as soybean rust, because it does form these little pustules and raised areas that look just like rust pustules in our other crops. Now, both of our bacterial diseases, we don't really see significant yield loss associated with those. We haven't documented any. Both of them are minor, but both of them are also diseases that you wouldn't see any control with a fungicide. Okay, you'd have no effect with that. Bacterial blights, usually favored by cooler conditions. As it warms up, it goes away. This one's warmer, but very minor, and typically something you just see occasionally in the top of the canopy. The one that's most common and in pretty much all your fields, you could say, is brown spot. Brown spot's a minor foliar disease of soybean, considered to be something that's, in the residue, going to occur just along the same development profile and the way it occurs is what we see for gray leaf spot in corn. It's going to start at the bottom of the canopy, work its way up. One of the diseases that we do see a really good response with a strobilurin fungicide, though, is frog eye leaf spot. How many of you have seen frog eye this year? Okay. This is a newer disease, though, for us, really. It's something that's not common in all of our fields. The frog eye leaf spot looks like these little round spots that we see on this leaf. It's like a frog eye. These leaves, this is from a strobilurin treated, non-treated. You can see the spots on there. Typically, strobilurin fungicides, you could just about open the jug at the side of the field. The frog eye leaf spot would stop. It's that kind of a response. It really does a great job. Okay, with that. It's one that's residue-borne also, and it will be one that you will gradually start seeing more of. There is resistance in some varieties, so you won't see it in all fields. So that's the first thing you look at, is variety selection when you have it. But once you have it, you're always going to have it. And then if you have conducive conditions, that'll continue to increase. Most of the time with this disease, when we see it first, we're going to see it in the top of the canopy. Just like I talked about with bacterial pustule. As the soybean leaf expands and matures, it becomes less susceptible to frog eye. For many years, when we started seeing a lot of fungicide use in corn and soybean, and there was widespread promotion of using strobilurin fungicides for non-disease control. A lot of people talked about the idea of fungicide resistance occurring. Until last fall, we did not have resistance in any of our major field crop diseases. Corn, soybean, and wheat, no problems. Last November was the first time that they found frog eye leaf spot resistant. This is Cercospora saccina. That's the fungus that causes frog eye leaf spot. Last fall was the first time they found resistance to any major crop disease. This was in Tennessee, an area where they had sprayed, each year, sprayed multiple times. So it was set up for potentially for resistance development, not good management that way. But the reason I show you this is an airborne disease. Okay, so they know it's in Tennessee. They found it in Kentucky, a couple sites. We expect it to move, okay? And if you spray a field and have frog eye, and you use strobilurin fungicide, and you're not seeing good control and it's continuing, just recognize this is something that could happen. The other thing I want to talk through just a little bit, when we use a foliar fungicide, and this would be if we're in a situation where we're trying to manage a disease in any crop, and we're trying to get that disease when it's low. Hit it when it's low. We got our progression curve here. We start out low, gradually, we get really favorable conditions, it shoots up, goes to the end point. Usually at the end of the season, if you got a susceptible corn hybrid, it's a great example of this. End of the year, gray leaf spot, it pretty much covers the plant. The key is when did that happen relative to fill, and what it was holding it down, so it wasn't at that level when you were in your critical fill stages. That's what you're trying to do, is keep it down. When we look at a fungicide, when we release that product, we're looking at about, I feel comfortable saying 21 days for the products that are out there. You can change rates. Some of the products maybe you get to 28. But 21 days is about your window from the time you release it that you've got. And that's why they talk about timing with this when you're looking at foliar disease control. Now, if we're looking at a situation where, maybe we've got some brown spot, we're wanting to try this, look at the potential to hit the plant health response, again, always go R3. When we're looking at the numbers that I have for foliar fungicide use. I share these with you. Comparisons, we looked at 2005, 2006, and 2007. 52 different sites. And we were looking with headline and without. Okay? My average is 1.2 across everything. Okay? Now that's a lot lower than you see in the flyers, right? And I'd say, do you ever see university data that matches the flyer for average yield impact? I don't think that ever happens. I don't know. I mean, I don't make it up, they don't make it up, but whatever. It's 1.8 if we had disease.
So just to give us a good definition of what we have, let's talk about really what is an inoculant. An inoculant actually is a live bacteria or a fungus that's added to the plant. Usually, and there's really three main classes. 30 years ago, we only had one class of these things, and that was the symbiotic relationships, where we put on the Brady rhizobia, we would get an inoculation, and we get nitrogen fixation. Now, in addition to that, we're seeing products like Votivo, which is kind of an antagonistic. It's supposed to help plants fight off pests, such as nematodes. We have things like out there like Jumpstart now, which supposedly are supposed to help the rhizosphere around the plant acidify a little bit more, make nutrients a little bit quicker to pick up. What we're really going to talk about is the area where we're seeing just a huge proliferation of products out there, which is why we need some data, and that's the biostimulants. And a lot of times we'll see biostimulants being packaged as with an inoculant as well. And if you look at the definition of a biostimulant, it's usually a substance or an extract from one plant or organism that has a beneficial and positive response for growth in another plant. We have put out some tests in northern Lancaster County. There's about 9 different products we have out there that were seed treatments. Some of them had an inoculant in it. Some of them had an inoculant plus the biostimulant. Some were strictly the biostimulant, and some had neither biostimulant or inoculant in it. So it could be like a fungicide treatment or what we had out there as, shall we say, bear seed. Kind of interesting as we looked at this data. This is just from several weeks ago. It's kind of interesting to us. If we looked at the numbers of nodules per plant, okay, here's all these new inoculants out there. We're seeing really a big step up in the amounts of nodules per plant compared to what we have in a background situation. This field was corn, soybeans rotation. So it was corn last year, soybeans the year before. So even though we're putting new inoculants out there, we're seeing just a bit of a step up. We saw a statistical significant increase in the number of nodules per plant where we used biostimulants only. Where we did see the benefit from the new inoculants was the weight of the nodules. We had bigger nodules with these new stimulants, a little bit bigger. Not statistically, but there's a step up. And we look at the combination as far as nodule weight or that root weight, where we had these products, it did help. And what do we see when we put some of these numbers together? Here's our root weight. Over here's kind of our check and our fungicides, 3.23 grams per plant. A step up with the inoculants, where we had biostimulants only, even another step up. Not significant, but there's that trend. Put the weights of the nodules per plant together, the new ones, biostimulants only, nice step up over what we saw as far as just the nodule weight per plant, where we had the residual nitrogen from previous years. I mean the residual rhizobia from previous years. Why is it important to have bigger roots, more nitrogen available? We're going to talk about that. Okay? Here's a study we did about 3 years ago in Butler County, where we had 2 rates of an experimental product, 7 ounces and 14 ounces. We applied this at first trifoliate. This is a foliar application. Put it on at first trifoliate. And as you can see, at the end of the year, when we counted numbers of pods on those first 5 trifoliate nodes on that main stem, we saw a little bit of increase here from about 7.5 to 8.2. From here and up to almost 10. So we had a nice step up in numbers of pods we had there. End of the season, however, as far as total yield, is pretty flat. We put them here, but we didn't necessarily keep them at the top of the plant. Here's some stuff we did last year up in Norfolk. This was a sandy soil. Sandy soil. Never had soybeans in it before. 18 years of consecutive corn. Had never had soybeans in it previously. As you can see, or maybe you can't see, we have some very light green rows here. They're a lot smaller than the larger dark green rows. These light green rows had inoculant only, the Brady rhizobia. As you can see where we had starter fertilizer, that starter fertilizer got the plants off to a bigger start. it's not really surprising if you think about it, because when you're putting radiorhizobia on, that bacteria have to infect the roots. Here's what we saw last year with those trifoliates at Norfolk. Okay? Our orange bars are basically about 3 per plant here. This is inoculant plus inoculant plus these are all 3 inoculants only, for the most part. They otherwise had some stimulant with it. Here's where we had, however, some adequate nitrogen available, because we added starter fertilizer in these situations. And as you can see, they're a little bit higher here at the beginning, about 3 versus 3.75. That same ratio is still seen there with trifoliate nodes at the end of the year. I mean, more nodes should mean more pods. Here's what we saw. Remember that pattern? We had about 3 here and the rest up here? It changed slightly. Here we have these 3, about 70, basically 80, 80, almost 90. Here's our fertilizer only. These are all fertilizers plus combinations of the stimulants. And you can see we increased that quite a bit. Now, when it came to yield, however, our yields did not necessarily reflect this one. They reflected the previous one. We saw a situation here where in northern Lancaster County, we had a little bit of nitrogen available compared to the sandy soil. We saw a different response. Most of you guys are going to be having heavier soils, so there's going to be some nitrogen there. If we look at it here, the red bars, you didn't see a huge amount of difference. There was a little bit early, but what's interesting later on, over here on the far right, the untreated check, we look at the green bars, which is the 30th of July. 10.6, 11, 12, 12, 12, 13. We had an extra node along. We get out here into August, 13, 15, 15, 15, 15, 16. Putting on 2 extra nodes, just on the trifoliate, main stem trifoliate node. Increase. Potential for yield should be there. The pod numbers started segregating out by treatment. Here's our 2 optimized treatments. We had 110 pods for about 10 days out there in August when we counted. Here's our check at 84. Vitazymes gave us about 10 more pods per plant. The vault, it's about the same thing. So, here's what we were thinking. We should have great yields here. 25 pods a plant more. I think one of the growers summed it up yesterday when we asked, what did we get? He summed it up by saying, disappointment. And it's probably very true. We were expecting great things. In reality, our yields in this field came in at about 55. It's not surprising. I think we were again limited by several types of nutrients. And here's what I want to leave you with. Okay? There's 3 main points. We believe that biostimulants can increase the potential for yield. Based on the data we've seen, they can increase the numbers of pods. Number 2, they do not replace nutrition. They may help maximize it, but they don't replace it. Number 3, I think that's probably the biggest point I want you to take home, is that number 3 is, if we're really going to see biostimulants be economical and do a great job for us, they're not going to do it unless we have the nutrition there to really capture what these things are setting up.